Hey everyone, and welcome to Big Red Homestead. I'm Josh, that's Caleb, and today, oh boy, another Husker game week and another tough loss in Lincoln. But we have a ton to talk about today. The predictions for a pivotal game against Purdue, the first road game for Nebraska this year. We're going to go through all the X factors and everything that Nebraska needs to do to take home a W on the road. And of course, we got to react to this Illinois game, breakdown, and the biggest takeaways for the rest of this Big Ten season for Nebraska. It's going to be a fun one. Caleb, how you doing?
I'm disappointed. I was going to come out right to talk about the disappointment, not just the loss, but really in the defense.
Sure.
What we thought was going to be the core of our season, that we didn't really need to rely on just freshman Dylan Raiola to make all the plays because we had a nice veteran defense who was top 15 in so many categories last year. And then to just get walked down by a subpar Illinois offense, a team that we had beat last year. Luke's good. Luke Allmeyer's good, but their run offense had been bad all year.
Yeah, it's really about getting run down by that running game. That's the real problem.
Just to get crushed on that being our strength, and for Ty and Nash to not look good. And I'd say, my disappointment in Tony White. We looked like we played so conservative, soft coverage. We're always running the zones. We're not really, the only time we take risks are on some zero blitzes, but here and there, but we're not trusting our guys in coverage, and that says a lot. And it just feels like we got outcoached in that sense, and just disappointing because we were so excited for who Tony White is, and probably in the biggest game of his career, he looked subpar. He didn't look like the great coach that he had been last year, and that's just frustrating. Because again, it shouldn't have come down to the Dylan Raiola overthrow of what people have been talking about, because that's a freshman quarterback who went and got 300 yards and 3 touchdowns on a good defense. Dylan Raiola did enough to win. Our that offense did enough to win. That defense did not, and so I'm frustrated.
I mean, you waste no time today. I love it. So obviously we're getting straight into the breakdown here of the Illinois game. We'll get into the predictions and all the insane X factors for the Purdue game in a second, but I'm with you. Clearly, this game, there were a lot of issues on both sides, but Raiola was not one of them. Let's start on the offensive side here with some of the takeaways, and then we'll head on to the defense and talk about those problems. But yeah, you're not kidding. I mean, Raiola, of course, 300 yards rushing, or 297 yards passing, 24 for 35, 3 touchdowns, and then the 1 pick, of course, that wasn't that bad of a ball. And so you got to love what Raiola is doing. He continues to show he's the real deal. And I mean, maybe 2 or 3 mistakes in this game. The overthrow, the miss on 3rd down, the 4th down play. But besides that, like he played perfectly well enough to win this game. And so you got to love that. So I mean, what are your biggest takeaways, besides obviously that Raiola is the truth and he's great? But of course, this offensive line was probably the first thought here.
Yeah.
Turner Corcoran going down is probably the big news of this week. He's going to be out for a while, according to Rhule, more than likely this season with a hamstring injury. So what are your thoughts here on this offensive line and potentially the patch job that's going to have to happen here moving forward?
Yeah, the big news last week for our offensive line is Mazuka was being out, and Latufsky has to come in. Disappointing. Latufsky just hasn't looked good whatsoever. That's not a shock, though. We've seen tape of him before, and it hasn't been good when he's been in. So that, hit number 1. Now, Gunnar Gatula, on the other hand, has looked solid when he's played, so I actually don't feel so bad. Turner Corcoran, as we all know, at left tackle, has been the bane of our existence for the last years. You talk about veterans who just suck, choke, too big for the moment. The shoes, the lights are too bright. We can't handle any sort of pressure whatsoever. It has been Turner Corcoran consistently.
And this might be the last we talk of Turner Corcoran.
Yeah. And this might be the swan song. So in that case, let me just go out and say, I think he is, for as many games as he has started, he is the worst Husker player to start as many games as he has ever. He is the worst player I've seen that has played as many games as he has and started in a Nebraska jersey. I mean, he never got better. I mean, he got a little bit better, but he went from the worst
21 snaps he played in that game was horrible. So
yeah, and out of But, remember, this is the guy who was the worst offensive lineman in the entire country for 2 years straight. And granted, I think part of it isn't his fault, right? He was never fast enough.
He should have been an inside lineman.
He looks good on the inside. He should never have been a left tackle. So really, it's not totally his fault. So, I'll retract. I mean, I won't retract what I say. He's the worst in a specific
left
position.
Tackle.
left tackle I've ever seen. But he's not the worst O-lineman. He could have been good if he was placed on the inside. But,
But you're only as good as your film at the end of the day.
The cover's
was
been
rough,
there.
But with that said, I mean, moving forward, thinking to the future here, Mazuka might be back this week. Rhule was talking about him potentially being back this week. So if you bring him back at right guard, you have Gunnar Gatula in there at left tackle. How do you feel about this offensive line moving forward?
Good. I feel good about Gatula. I'm excited to see what he can do. I mean, I think he is better than Turner. I think Turner, I'd say it was pretty net equal at this point, but Turner has had more experience, so you play him.
The growth.
I think Gunnar hopefully can grow more because, again, Turner's growth rate is very slow, and hopefully Gatula's can be a little bit higher. Mazuka, whatever the problem has been inside of the building, you hope it can improve, and you feel like net positive going forward on the offensive line, but you do hurt a little bit in the depth, which is always a concern. Bryce Benhart, though, he's still got some question marks, but we'll live.
Yeah,
I guess.
Currently Benhart's ranked 313th in the Power 5 in pass blocking efficiency after these 4 games. So it's not great by any means. When you look at this offensive line, you know what you're getting into, and I think Satterfield and company is going to have to be aware and know that this offensive line, you can't rely on them.
And then, speaking of which, the stupid comments. I'm so frustrated. Matt Rhule on their love affair with Dante Dowdle and just the trash can he is running on the edges. Emmett Johnson has had 13 rush carries, rips off a couple huge touchdowns, had the most all-purpose yards last game, and doesn't get a freaking snap as a running back? Not one? Are you kidding me? No, we just wanted to pound the ball with Dante Dowdle. Well, how'd that work out for you, Matt? Not very good. No, it didn't. It didn't work out well at all.
The love affair that Matt has with Dowdle it's just strange. I mean, again, he's fine. He's fine. But
he's okay. He's a one-trick pony. I can run forward hard, and that's it. And then you put him out on the edge, and what happens? We get tackled for a 3-yard loss. It happened multiple times. What are we doing?
It's strange.
You're not seeing the same thing in practice? Well, no, you're not, because actually our outside linebackers can't tackle for crap. So that's why he probably looks great in practice.
What's strange to me is it's a dissonance between the talk that they had in the offseason. All they talked about in the offseason was we want the running back who can make the guy miss at the second level. Dowdle hasn't shown that literally once.
No.
Emmett's shown it like 4 times this year. So
he can run into a guy.
We're not just like these Emmett truthers. We're just saying that like there's a cognitive dissonance here between how they're approaching with Dowdle.
I want him to get ball carries. I think he's great, and he's a downhill bully back, but he has a time and place, and so does Emmett. And especially when you're trying to get design stuff out to the edge to use your speed, like Ramir or specifically Emmett's your guy. They're shifty. Dante Dowdle is not that.
Right. Dowdle had 20 attempts. Ramir had 4. Emmett had 0. What's going on here?
I don't think that he established himself as the best back, especially after last week. Emmett looked like the best back.
There's no separation at this point. Yeah, no separation at this point. On the plus side, this is the thing, and this is why it's so frustrating. And again, at the end of the day, the offense really wasn't the problem in this game. The defense was.
Running the ball in the second half was. But
sure, and I agree. But the receiving core played perfectly great well enough for us to win this game. I mean, Isaiah Nair, Ja'Cory Barney, and Banks all came to play. So what are your thoughts here on this receiving core now from what we've seen from them, and what can we expect moving forward?
We talked about the big X factor being that Banks really hadn't shown up last game, and that was really concerning because we needed the big body target. And then we go on
coverage against man coverage.
And then we see on a couple crucial third downs, he comes in huge on 3rd and 10 and 3rd and 13. Where you expected Banks to be during this season, the trusted guy that can go up and high point a ball. We see that multiple times, which was comforting. That's what he was paid here to do for NIL. And we absolutely got that. Dylan threw great balls. He made that comeback catch that he made to the sideline to continue that drive. Just awesome. We needed that.
Filthy.
And then also Nair, again, being able to be the great player he is. That awesome toe drag catch, end zone being the highlight. NFL, right? He got 2 toes in. I mean, that was super awesome.
Like the personnel here is perfect. So you've got Banks to beat man, you've got Nair to beat zone, and you've got Barney who's great against both and great behind the line of scrimmage. So you have the
game's on the
trio
line
here,
and we need to get a first down. How many of those guys are on the field, Josh? None. 0. We got Lindenmeyer, Borkacher, Lindenmeyer, Fedoni, and Bullock. Oh, yes. Exactly none of the 4 wide receivers I want to see on the field. That's awesome. Game on the line. Thanks, coach.
Makes no sense.
Thanks, coaches.
Yeah, it makes no sense. And so this is something to keep up with again this season. Is like Isaiah Nayer right now. Again, I talked about this in last week's video, but he's currently 5th best graded in the country out of 173 qualified Power 5 receivers in zone coverage. He's fantastic against zone. And literally all of his big plays were in zone, but he's currently 170th against man. So this is something to continue to watch for, and I really recommend watching for in the games, because like this week, it was literally so incredible. It was like every time they played zone, Nayer was wide open. Every time they played man, there was nowhere to be found. And so it really is incredible.
Well, look what happens when he plays man. He gets the ball ripped out of his hands in the end zone. That's so frustrating.
And that was one of the man plays.
Great throw by Dylan. Clearly in his hands. Come down with the ball. That's 2 weeks in a row. I mean, come on. Where's the calisthenics, the hand workouts to get your stuff ripped out from you?
He is a bit skinny.
I mean, it's tough. I mean, I get so is Lloyd, but that's frustrating. That's frustrating to have happen 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, 100%. So, I mean, the personnel's great here, and then you have Lloyd, right? So, like, this is something that I think we're going to have to talk about in the Purdue game as a huge X factor. So, okay,
Barney and Lloyd on
you
the
can talk
field
about
more.
the offense at all times, but let's go on the defensive side here and just talk about some of these things. Illinois, as a whole, in this matchup, I mean, on the defensive side, they had lost Jazon Newton and Keith Randolph. So you're like, how in the world is Illinois going to replace that production? We should be able to run the ball against the team, yada, yada, yada. Same thing on the offensive side. They lost Isaiah Williams, Tip Ryman, Casey Washington, some really nice players there on the offensive side of Illinois. They lost a lot of their explosiveness, but then they brought in the right players, and Illinois came in here and looked fantastic. And of course, Luke Altmaier is a great quarterback. So this was a real test for Nebraska, and we failed the test, clearly. So let's start here on the defensive side. Where are your thoughts here?
That we had a horrible game plan going in. Why weren't we rushing more? We needed to get to Luke Altmaier. And too many times, we were comfortable with only rushing 4 and giving him 5-6 seconds for them to find the open guy downfield.
And playing soft zone.
And soft zone. I mean, we're giving them 4 or 5 yards off the sticks. And it was just easy, dumb stuff that's like, this is elementary level. We needed a lot better than this game plan. It seemed soft. It seemed scared. And it seemed loser-esque. It felt like just loser-esque calls over and over again. And I know it's early in the season. You're like, Caleb, why are you getting so mad? We're 3-1. But listen, this if we don't nip this now, it's going to be the exact same season this next year. Except this time we'll have our offense look good because we have a great player in Dylan Raiola. And then our defense will suck. It felt just
not to mention Indiana's a real team now. Rutgers is a real team. Purdue's not a pushover team.
Yeah, so we can't play to not lose, and it felt like that, especially in the second half, to get walked down. I mean, Bret Bielema out-coached the crap out of our coaching staff this second half, and it was just frustrating because there was nothing we could do about it. It was just like, oh, let's just drop 8 and let Luke Lindenmeyer look wherever he wants on the field and pick us clean like he was all season. And then you feel like you don't have the right guys in the personnel.
Yeah.
It was confusing. I felt like it was just contrarian to everything that the tape was saying to do. I mean, we just...
So I want to talk about this a little bit here. So last season, obviously, this defense had 2 key contributors in the passing game. This year, it's been really rough. So you remove Omar Brown from the picture and you remove Javen Wright from the picture. Yeah. And this defense clearly is missing something in the passing game now. Hartzog has been a legitimate liability downfield, especially in man coverage. And right now, Hartzog on PFF is graded as the 614th best or the 14th worst out of 628 players in the Power 5 in man coverage. And he's 293rd in zone.
He had a pick.
Yeah, cool. Bread baskets, right? I mean, this is a situation where so maybe overall, let's talk about some of the personnel in general right now on the defensive side. So we've seen a lot of different guys play. We've seen this Mekhi Bayer experiment. We've seen Stephen Thompson. We've seen Gifford. We've seen Hartzog. We've seen Bullock. We've seen the young guys. So
I think it's time. Where
are you at?
It's time to bring in the young guys. I mean, I'm serious. Matt Rhule talked about how the old guys, they lost their training as the game came to a close. Then pull them. If they're not the same players they were in the fourth quarter because they can't
rely on them.
Well, guess what? I want new guys. Stewart looks like he's ready to go this whole time. Willis McGahee looks like he's ready to go. I'm ready to pull these. And then Buford is a great player. Let's pull Malcolm Hartzog off. Let's put Buford back at safety. Let's put Stewart at safety. Keep him at corner. Sierra Wright looked like a great player last week. Keep him on the field.
With Tommy Hill. Yeah, right.
Yeah, keep him on the field. I'm sick of these losing plays. And then our defense made it look so simple for Illinois because they did make it simple. Wide open 4 touchdowns with a guy uncovered on just a stupid rollout bootleg, and we're going to get killed with it over and over and over and over again 4 different times and not figure it out. Oh, but it was a different guy. Yes, same. It's the same concept, though. It's the same boot pull.
And the last one in overtime was Pat Bryant was at fullback, and you're telling me Pat Bryant's at fullback, and you're not going to mark Pat Bryant?
We're not going to mark anyone. I mean, they're not even going to. Our safety's not even going to get there. Malcolm Hartzog, Deshaun Singleton looked lost. I mean, they all sold out a run, for a run. 11 of 11 counter plays, tripping on the field. It's just simple stuff that's like our defense is better than this. And you watch the tape and you get sick knowing that we've played a lot better than this last year, and we look like we can't do the big things right. We can't do the obvious right. That's not at all black shirt. I mean, but whatever black shirts that we all style last year, I mean, it felt like nobody deserved it this year. Ty and Nash got killed at the line of scrimmage. They got bullied all game.
Sure.
They've been our best players. What's up with this? I don't know. I feel like we just looked completely unprepared to play football on Saturday.
Yeah, to me, I think Stephen Thompson earned him. He needs to play more. He needs to play more. He's great in coverage. He's super reliable. He seems to be a really, really well-rounded defender. So I think you got Bayer is too much of a liability in general, but especially in man coverage.
If Sierra Wright doesn't rip the ball out there in the second half, they didn't punt once and they score. Like they would have scored, and they didn't punt once in the second half.
Right. It's rough. So yeah, to me, you have to make some changes here. Obviously, Tommy Hill was out, but you can't you can't let one guy go out and this whole team collapse, And
we've been playing soft zone this whole time anyway.
And then Zachary Franklin went out, so it was really a 1-for-1 there.
Yeah, it was a trade.
So, to me, yeah, it definitely showed some problems. And I think this week, if we don't see significant changes with the personnel, I'd be super surprised, and that would really worry me. Especially if we end up not changing and then we have problems. So we have problems again with this group, then I'd have real questions about what's going on with the coaching staff.
I'm baffled. Tony White
seems like Buford to safety play.
Yeah, I think Buford back to safety. Then we can bring him down again, and we can be a little bit more physical at the line of scrimmage. I like Stewart in way more. He's looked so good this season. Like, let's keep him in there. Let's keep Sierra Wright in there.
Hartzog has not played himself onto the field. If anything, there's huge question marks.
Played him off.
Right. So
he's played himself off.
I'm with you. I mean, we'll talk about all these X factors here moving into the Purdue
Thompson
game.
in over Bayer.
I mean, that feels like an easy move to me, right?
It seems
and then I think
obvious.
The other thing is I want to see Sherman and Princewell on the field more together if we can figure out a way to do that.
Double pass rush.
Princewell at the end would be very interesting.
Yeah. I think Princewell, his body type fits the end.
Yeah.
When his brother plays.
So, yeah, I think it's interesting. I think those are all potential options, and I think we need to start getting a little bit more flexible here with our personnel and how we try to play these guys. So hopefully that's what I want to see moving forward. Okay, without further ado, we'll talk about a lot of those things and X factors as well with how we're kind of trying to tweak the defense here. But let's get into the Purdue game and talk about this is a crucial game for Matt Rhule and this coaching staff and for Nebraska to bounce back after a devastating loss. I mean, similarly what happened to Purdue earlier in the year when a team lost a disappointing game, aka Notre Dame, came out and they absolutely stomped Purdue. So hopefully we can do something similar here, but this is not going to be easy on the road in Purdue.
No.
Right now, though, Vegas is liking Nebraska. 9.5 point favorites, 50.5 point over under. Very similar to the line last week against Illinois. In this season right now, Purdue, it's been a bit rough. They've only played 3 games, but they're 1-2. They played 2 Power 5 teams, including Notre Dame, where they lost by like 60, and Oregon State, where they lost 38-21 with a win against Indiana State in week 1. So there's not as much film on these guys as there was against other teams who have played 4 games, obviously. But right now, PFF has them power ranked to 82. They have Nebraska now at 57 after the loss to Illinois. That is low for PFF. Based on PFF grades, though, Nebraska's at 27th, feels more realistic, and Purdue at 67th. So with that said, based off of their resume right now, let's start on their offensive side here and kind of give me an overview of this offense with Hudson Card at the helm. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, classic. Hudson Card, another one, a quarterback that we've seen before that's been in the same uniform, which We can't say for every team in the Big Ten this season. So
not many of them.
It's nice to have familiarity, to have tape on him, somebody that we've seen and played before. He's great in the short passing game, man. He gets the ball out quick when he throws unblitzed. He's a great QB, one of the best in the country. Yeah, when there's no pressure, one of the best in the country, 9th of 79. He knows exactly what to do. When he's a quarterback that gets pressured, he's 63rd of 79th, and that's a lot better. For Nebraska's defense, you get really excited on the fact that, hey, we send pressure at this guy, he becomes a lot worse. And we saw that in the tape. He has 4 turnovers on the season already.
I mean, Notre Dame just assaulted him back there. It was horrible.
You feel like there could be a lot more this season. You know, I'm excited. I think the defense should be licking their licks, especially because of just how poor they played this last week. How frustrated they are. I think they can take out a lot of frustration on this Purdue offense because, I mean, granted, they're a test. They're going to get the ball out quick. This is something we struggle against Northern Illinois. And, you know, they have some running pieces. I don't think this is just some pushover game for our defense, especially when we've seen any team can sustain, when Iowa can sustain drives on you for 10 minutes in a quarter, you know, it poses problems.
One thing we know about Card is he's reliable. And yes, he's had problems with turnovers this year. And yeah, but that part of that is because the offensive line has had a lot of problems as well. And that's a bit surprising considering they did bring back some respectable offensive linemen, but so far this year, out of the pressures, you know, Card hasn't been the one responsible. The offensive line's been responsible for 93.8% of the pressures, which is the 6th most in the Power 5 of the 71 qualified teams, and so our quarterbacks. And so, you know, that has been a huge issue for them. Obviously, Notre Dame has a lot of talent up front, but Oregon State also got there on them as well. And, you know, they're a team that has a lot of new personnel after losing their head coach to Michigan State. So it's a really interesting scenario, I think, when you talk about the offensive line and the receiving core after losing so many pieces. I mean, they lost Deion Burks, who was incredible last year, to Oklahoma, and TJ Sheffield, who was also a big body guy to UConn. So, like, they had to replace these guys, and so they haven't been as effective downfield so far this year. They've only thrown the ball downfield around like 17th least in the Power 5. So they've been more conservative, like Caleb said, keeping the ball around the line of scrimmage and taking what the defense gives them. I think that's one strength for Purdue and for Hudson Card is he really is good at that in the RPOs, playing underneath, just taking what the defense gives you. They're willing to get those 4-yard those 4-yard pass gains on first down. And again, they know that the offensive line is a problem, and they make sure to get that ball out quick. So I don't know. What are your thoughts here on the personnel here, wide receivers? And probably the highlight of this offense is their running back group, Devin Mockabee and Reggie Love III coming over from Purdue.
Yeah, their offensive line is not good. They're responsible for 93.8% pressure, 6 months in the Power 5. Their right tackle and left guard specifically are places of weakness for them. You want to see MJ Sherman lined up on the right tackle. You want to see Principal Uman Milan lined up on the right tackle. And you hope Nash and Ty can take advantage of their left guard in this game. Again, we said that last week about Illinois on the weakness of their interior and that hopefully being their strength, and they got outmanned. This is the Big Ten, and we thought we had a really physical football team. And last week I was really disappointed. The dominant contact that we preach so much, that RDV, was not there for us against Illinois. How can it be against Purdue, against a coach who's defensive minded, who believes in a physical football team? Can we be that this week? Because if we can't against a Purdue team who's not great at the point of attack, we're going to have a long season and bowl eligibility might slip through our grasp. So we have to figure this out, and it has to be this week.
Yeah, I mean, when you pair that with an RB core that has one of the most physical running back cores in the country, especially in the Big Ten.
Mockabee,
Devin Mockabee, who's just a bowling ball, and Reggie Love, who also has a lot of size and physicality. He's a good downhill runner. So, they replaced Tyrone Tracy, who was exactly that as well. Where last year Purdue was already one of the most physical teams in the country at when running the ball, and so it gets interesting. Obviously, last year, Nebraska had success against Purdue, and they found ways to put up points, and the defense played incredible in that game. They won 31-14. It looked great, and defense shut them down. So you'd hope more of that. But I mean, you could say the same thing about Illinois. Last year, Hudson Card went 16 for 32 in that game with 100 yards and 2 picks and 1 touchdown. Mockabee only had 7 carries for 42 yards in that game. And so it was a dominant performance at home. So you wonder if you can go on the road and make the same thing happen. So, I mean, on the defensive side for Purdue, it's interesting because like they seem to have some decent pieces, including like a dominant player like Kendron Jenkins, who was really great against us last year, number 4, big bodied, really physical, and a great pass rusher. And then they had Dylan Thieneman, who last year was one of the best players in the country as a freshman, but it hasn't been so hot this year.
No, he looked really bad in the Notre Dame game and just others.
Really bad.
Trying to do too much, but he also didn't tackle well. It was just all really surprising, especially because last year tape was so fun to watch. We're like, wow, this guy's next up and one of the really great football players in the Big Ten. So surprising. Maybe he'll figure it out. I'm not going to write him off totally yet, but it has not been a hot start whatsoever. Year 2, I think that they'll still be good and there's things they can do. Markevius Brown.
I mean, that's what Ryan Walters was brought in for, right?
Yeah,
I mean, he was brought in
Walters,
as a defensive coordinator.
Guy. But
the guy who made that Illinois defense so good.
The way Dylan played, I have a huge amount of confidence going into the Big Ten. For Banks to have a solid game against great cornerbacks from Illinois, I feel really good about what our offense is going to be able to do. Even with a questionable offensive line, I hope we figure out the running back situation more, give it more of a 1-2 punch instead of just relying on,
what would you say
on Dowdell? But I think we can.
What would you say
Purdue's
strength is on the defensive side?
Pass rush, I guess. I would say with Will Helt and Jenkins, I feel like they can get to the quarterback a little bit.
On the ground this year, they've been absolutely wrecked. I mean, to be fair, again, none of their stats are going to look good after that 66-point just routing by Notre Dame. But right now, they're 129th in opponents' points per play. They're 118th in opponents' yards per play. They're 133rd in opponents' points per game. They're 131st in opponents' yards per rush. Like,
we should be able
rough.
You would hope that we'd be able to score a lot of points. And I know, yes, you're right. It's skewed because of that. I don't think we can just blow them out 66
But Oregon State did the same thing, though.
Yeah, I mean, they scored a lot of points. You would hope that Nebraska can also get the same amount. I think that Dylan's always an X factor. But, man, again, what I saw from him last week and the throws he continues to make is he's absolutely the real deal. To me, he looks like he's going to be one of the greatest Husker players I've ever seen put on the end. It already feels like, he is going to be that in this category as he continues to just impress and do things that I've never seen any other quarterback at Nebraska do with a football. At this point, I need our defense to see what we are this year because on our first true test, you could say Colorado, but Colorado has a horrible offensive line. And,
that's
one
the thing.
good skill player.
They're not like any other team in the country.
No. Yeah,
they're not even comparable.
Yeah, they are. They are unique one of one. Colorado is. They're an experiment even. It's a Frankenstein's monster. Colorado.
Right. You can't learn about your team
Yeah.
playing against Colorado.
You can learn about, maybe some past stuff, but then we didn't because look what Altmaier did.
That's exactly the thing. You learn a lot more when you play against Illinois. So that's the issue here. So let's talk about the X factors and really dig into this. So when you're looking at this game, and you look at the matchups, and you look at us, and you look at both sides of the ball, what stands out to you that is going to take? What are the X factors here for Nebraska, for Purdue in this game?
The same like last week. We have to get pressure to the quarterback. How are we going to do this? We weren't able to do it against Luke Altmaier. When you drop back and just let him pick you apart, play soft zone, we will get cooked. We could easily lose that game if that's the game plan this week. So we must
Card's good enough
way
to
more
tear
aggressive.
us apart.
Yeah, they are. Card is good enough. And you get him comfortable, he starts looking like, a Luke Altmaier. He starts throwing 75%. Soon enough, those Purdue wide receivers.
Remember what Aiden O'Connell did to us?
Exactly. Soon enough, those Purdue wide receivers, those 4-yard catches that they get, start going 10, 15. So we have to be able to get pressure to him. That's how we beat Shedeur. That's how you beat good quarterbacks. And they're going to try to get the ball out fast. I'm concerned to get walked down again. If they're able to beat us on the edges, then, they spread us out. Soon enough, the run lanes open up more. So you have to stop it at the point of attack for them. And that is get pressure on Hudson Card. And if we can't do that, then this game, we might be walking it into another 5-7. I'm not going to go that far, but it's a problem.
It gets
it's a real
scary.
Problem. It gets scary. You get frustrated.
Right. Well, I mean, this is the thing. It's like Card versus pressure versus not pressured is, drastic difference. And this is like something in his history of his career. And so we've seen Card struggle downfield at times. And so for me, it's like, why would you not just throw the absolute barn at him? there's nothing to worry about here. And like the only explanation for why I can say we're not is because Tony White doesn't trust our team in man, just doesn't trust the personnel, doesn't trust.
The great news
Buford,
is
doesn't trust
Purdue
Hartzog.
this week, they don't like throwing the ball with distance. They don't like throwing the ball downfield. They don't have time. They don't trust it. So you can
against
take
Oregon
the
State,
risk.
they were losing in the
risk
game.
on
They only threw the ball 17 times against Oregon State.
You can take the risk throwing the football. Playing in man on this team, playing press coverage, playing
what
up
you can't let them do is run the ball for 263 yards like they did against Oregon State.
No.
Devin Mockeby had 168 yards rushing in that game. And so this is where I feel like you have to have an aggressive game plan here. You have to force their less talented guys on the outside to beat you. You have to stack the box and let Singleton and Gifford play aggressive at the line of scrimmage. And I mean, ideally, I want to see Buford at safety because that's where he's at his best, in my opinion. But
yeah, I want to see Buford. I want to see Stewart. I don't want to see Hartzog. And Deshaun Singleton, you could play him up there too. But yeah.
So for me, like that's where one thing is. I want to see an aggressive game plan here. You can't give Card that time. So that's key number one, no doubt about it. Key number two for me is on the offensive side is we have to attack the edges. I mean, all three teams, even Indiana State, had success on the edges against Purdue. They seem to lack speed to the outside. And at this point, with Thieneman not tackling well, their safety presence hasn't been nearly as threatening as it has been in past years. And so we've seen teams have a lot of success. I mean, Oregon ran the ball all over them, 341 yards rushing in that game. And of course, I mean, Notre Dame had even more, I think, than that. So these teams have had a lot of success on the ground. Clearly, we don't have a running quarterback like those teams do. So that's going to be a little bit different. But we do have great personnel to take advantage of this speed on the outside. We have Barney, we have Nair, we have Lloyd. Get the ball to those edges. Hit these sweeps, get the ball out quick. Let's use our speed here and really try to be physical at the line of scrimmage and see what we can do on the edges. I mean, to me, it just feels like a huge advantage, one that we have, and we have the personnel to do it. So why would you not attack it? It worked, and it worked against Illinois. We were having it work in the first half, and then we went away from it in the second half.
Yeah,
so to me, it just makes no sense. One
of the touchdown drives was the little, reverse to Barney,
Nair.
To Nair and to Nair. So, and that got us a first down. If you hope the downfield blocks could continue to be a little bit better. I know it's been a weakness for us, but that speed is enough to get us positive yardage a lot of the time. And I couldn't agree more.
Clearly, that also means Emmett Johnson should be on the field. That's also another X factor.
Yeah, Emmett's a lot faster than, I agree.
He's better in space. He's better at making the second level miss. And so, if we can make Thieneman miss, we could take something to the house here. So, please, for the love of all things, give Emmett a chance to touch the ball. So, and Rhule literally said it in the presser. He's like, we need to get Emmett the ball more. Okay, cool. Your actions speak louder than your words, though. That's the thing. Yeah. So, that's a big word for me. One thing I want to hear you talk about is we know Purdue's going to try to attack the short game. So, the X factor here is how do you prevent Purdue from tearing you up at the line of scrimmage? What do you try to do here on the defensive side here?
Well, again, I think you get really comfortable in cover one this game, and again, to get comfortable in man.
Play the line of scrimmage, press.
And then it's also who we put in. We talked about this more, but it's a Stephen Thompson game. He's much better in coverage. Let's get MJ Sermon on the line. Let's get Prince Will. I'd love Prince Will in a set where he's a guy that's rushing, get a hand in the dirt and just be a defensive end. That's something we need. Man, Sierra, let's put Sierra in the game. I mean, I think he is now because unless Tommy Hill doesn't come back in, so he's probably in the game. But
yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah, I mean,
so it's really about the personnel for you then.
Yeah, it's about switching the personnel and then again switching the game plan. Let's be way more aggressive.
So with that said, let's take all this into account and get into these predictions. So right now, 9.5 point spread, 50 point over under roughly. So where are you at with this game? Walk me through it.
The thing that I think I've learned now, or 33% done with the season through 4 games. The thing I've learned is our offense has really improved. Dylan Raiola, he is the best player on the team at this point, and he's really improved all of the offense around him. The offensive line's got better at pass protection. Our wide receiver cores continue to improve, and I'm really excited to see what we continue and the pieces we can get to put around him, because if I was a player, Dylan Raiola is the absolute real deal. Who would not want to play with that guy on the offense or defensive side of the ball? But the defense, on the other hand, has regressed. The worry of losing Omar, Javen going down, has really been a problem for this season. And I don't know. I'm going to need a lot to prove that I can continue to trust this defense in the new iteration is what it is, because you see Tony White's scared to put us in man coverage because he knows we will probably get exposed. And so he's trying to cover that in whatever way he can. So I think the defense isn't going to win us the games that it did last year in the ways that it could. I know in the Colorado game, there was a big pick and we can get turnovers, which is great. But we need to get stops. I need more than just turnovers. I need stops at this point. So I think that the defense allows 28 points against this subpar Purdue team, which is frustrating. But I think Nebraska's offense, I do think the defense will get some turnovers. We've been good in the turnover battle, so that will really help. And I think the offense will capitalize. Dylan has gone 3 of 4 in 2-minute drills this season with the ball, 2 minutes driven down the field to score. That's so impressive. That's just the mark of a great QB. 38-28 Nebraska. But I'm frustrated, I think, maybe at the defense for another week.
Yeah, I think that's a good prediction. I'm with you there. To me, the biggest opportunity for Nebraska is in the passing game. And again, finding space at the outside. So there's really going to be opportunity downfield here. We haven't really been as aggressive downfield the last 2 weeks as I thought we would be. I get it against Illinois, considering the strength that they had so much strength in the secondary. But in this game, let's see what Tyneman's got for us. Let's see what these corners got. I mean, sure, they've got like Markevius Brown. He's pretty decent, but he's by no means like an elite. He's not like a Devon Witherspoon or something like that. He's just decent. So we have the advantage, in my opinion, at both receiver positions and at the line of scrimmage in the slot. So I like the offensive odds here to move the ball, especially if Mizuka's back. I do like that a lot.
Yeah, it feels
so
nice.
For me, the offense has an advantage. The defense, I'm with you. I think overall there's question marks, but I think this is going to be a little bit of a lower scoring game on the road. Both teams are going to have some struggles. So for me, I'm going to take the under here. I think pretty confident in that. When it comes to the spread, I'm not confident. Like you picked Nebraska to cover the spread. I'm not nearly as confident. I mean, to me, the road game still worrisome, especially when it comes to this defense, and the running game for Purdue is no joke. I mean, they have the physical running backs that have oftentimes plagued Nebraska. We saw what happened. The team last year who we beat came out this year motivated to play. And I think Purdue, they need a win. They're going to be desperate in this game at home. They lost to us last year. This is going to be a desperate team playing to win. So it's going to be a tight game in my opinion. So I'm going to take Nebraska though. I think the offense is the X factor here. 28-20. The matchups are good. We have the athleticism to the outside. And overall, I think Purdue's offensive line is a real problem. And so for me, that limits their upside as an offense, even though our defense has been a little bit lackluster. And I do trust Tony White to make the adjustments a little bit. Good film there against Illinois. So you can't blame him for the game plan coming off of a pretty impressive win against Colorado and Northern Iowa. So I think he's going to learn, and we'll make the adjustments that are necessary in a 28-20 victory on the road, which is desperately needed for this real team to get a road victory here in the season. So hopefully that's what happens.
Yeah, I think Dylan's just gotten so much better as the season's gone on, and so has the offense as it continues to click. I think that really we get more points on this subpar defense.
I'm just worried that this defense might dial in on Nair, play man on him, and then force us to find more space there. And that's where you hope you use those
Carter Nelson,
those man beaters. Yeah, Carter Nelson, or you use the slot to get space for Ja'Cory Barney underneath, things like that. So
I agree.
That's where I hope we can make it happen. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. And of course, we always do the Discord predictions, and shout out Krookie, Krookie 4012, who absolutely nailed the prediction. 34-24 Illinois. He said he needed to see it before he believes it against a good team like Illinois. And that's about as simple of a prediction as you need to make. I mean,
3 points. He was 3 points off. Yeah, he was absolutely right.
Join the Discord join the Discord. The link's down in the description. Hang out with us during the games. This will be a fun one. Now it's on the road. We can all sit there and talk during the game.
Woo!
And get your predictions in there. So it'll be a fun one. We appreciate you guys. Drop your comments down below and your predictions, of course, for the Purdue game. Thanks for hanging with us. But as always, I'm Josh. That's Caleb. This has been Big Red Homestead, and guys, we will see you next time.
Go Big Red.
Go Big Red, baby.